to George, the curious little monkey. He must know what everything's about. Curious George, the curious little monkey. What's he up to? Let's find out.
Curious George visits the old town. They're having a celebration in the old section of town today, George, said the man with the yellow hat. Let's go. They got into their little blue car and drove off. Horses were pulling old carriages, and tourists were visiting the old-fashioned shops. Come on, George, let's see what's going on there, said the man. A lady in an old fancy costume was standing in front of the blacksmith shop. Many years ago, they shoed the horses here, she said. This was where the blacksmith forged the metal for the horseshoes. He kept the fire going by using the bellows to blow air on it. George was watching. How did the bellows work? He was curious. When the lady took the tourists to the other side of the shop, George stayed behind. He went to the brick oven, picked up the bellows, and squeezed it. A gust of air came out. George kept on squeezing. On the top of the table was a pile of paper. One squeeze, and they all went flying. Then George sneaked to the group of tourists. Another squeeze, and the ashes from a man's pipe flew all over. One more squeeze, and off flew the lady's fancy wig. "What's going on here?" shouted the man with the pipe. "Who's doing this?" yelled someone else. "It's that monkey," said another tourist. "Let's catch him." He dashed out the door and ran down the street. Everybody ran after him. But George disappeared around a corner. A horse and carriage were standing in front of a restaurant. The driver was having lunch. George leaped up and hid under a blanket. A little boy named Robert was feeding some sugar to the horse. He climbed up and sat in the driver's seat. "Giddy up," he shouted. The horse heard him and trotted out into the road. Just then, a car was coming from a side street. The horse was scared. More horns blew. "Look out," a driver shouted. "A runaway horse." "Help!" cried Robert. He was scared. George stuck his head out and looked around. The driver of the carriage came out of the restaurant and ran after them. "Pull on the reins," he shouted. "That'll stop the horse." Robert couldn't find the reins. They were dragging on the ground. But George knew what to do. He leaped onto the horse's back, gathered up the reins, and pulled as hard as he could. Soon, the horse stopped. The driver came running over. "Are you all right?" he asked Robert. "Yes, thanks to George," said Robert. "Nice going, George," said the driver, and shook George's hand. Just then, the angry lady guide came running over, followed by the man with the pipe, followed by the man with the yellow hat. "So there you are, you little rascal," she said. "Don't punish him," interrupted the driver. "He may have been naughty, but he did save the little boy by stopping the horse." "You're right," said the lady. "Surely the boy is more important than my wig." "Hooray for George!" yelled one of the tourists, and everybody clapped. "It's time to go home, George," said the man with the yellow hat. And so they did.